Thank you all for joining us for the Service Learning Workshop. Joining us today are Ryan Satterwhite, Director of Service Learning and Leadership, and Elena Gandia Garcia, Associate Professor in Residence of Spanish in World Languages and Cultures. They're going to be discussing service learning and how it can be implemented in your discipline. So I'm going to hand it over to them to get us started. Thank you.
All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to talk from kind of a number of different perspectives on service learning and how that pedagogy can be used and utilized and so helpful in a lot of different academic contexts. So the general flow of today's workshop is going to be kind of front loading with a bunch of information. So we'll talk through the general concept and definition of service learning, the UNLV framework for service learning. The institution's been doing a lot of work around that in recent years. And then Elena's gonna offer her experience as a faculty member in implementing service learning in courses. She's got a lot of rich experience with that. And then it's gonna kind of change significantly in that we're gonna be looking for a lot of interaction. We don't just wanna be talking at you the whole time. So we're gonna front load it with some information that's gonna be useful, but then we're gonna spend as much time as possible on an activity of applying some of the content that we're talking about. So what could it look like to actually design and build out a service learning experience in a course maybe that you've had or that you could imagine or that you have experience with. So that's our intent today. And I should start off maybe by offering a further introduction. My name is Ryan Satterwhite. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I'm really, really excited to be partnering with Elena in this presentation. So thanks again for being here. I'm also going to put a link in the chat to the slides if anyone would like to have view access to that and follow along. There are a number of kind of links and resources that we include as we go through it.
And while Ryan does that, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Elena. I work for the World Languages and Cultures Department. I specifically teach for the Spanish program, but my field of study has to do with legal interpreting. I also do some translation. So that will come in handy later when I explain to you what I've been doing with my courses, so you get an idea of what kind of service learning I have experience with, but I'm gonna also offer you other options to see if that, depending on your major, works better for you. So Ryan, do you wanna go ahead and start?
Perfect, yeah, ready for next slide or two there. All right, so let's start off by a classic definition of service learning, and I'm eventually going to complicate this a little bit, but it's a good starting place. And so that is that service learning is a form of experiential education where students engage in activities addressing human and community needs with structured opportunities designed to promote learning and development. And it's really important that reflection and reciprocity are key concepts of service learning. So taking a big step back, service learning is about integrating meaningful and hopefully deep and reciprocal community partnerships into academic courses. And of course, that can look quite different from, say, major to major or topic to topic, but there are some common threads that are kind of best practice that we're going to walk through here. So in the form of experiential education, where you're applying what you're applying and learning at the same time in partnership with community members. So to situate it a little bit further, you might be wondering, well, where does the line between service learning and, say, internships lie, or kind of non-credit bearing community engagement experiences? Which is a really good question, and we've borrowed from some of the kind of seminal sources in the field to create some of these illustrations. So you can see on the left side where service learning is kind of situated in this ideal center space between academic study, practical experience, and civic engagement. And that's not to lessen the benefit or the importance of any of the other kind of intersections in that Venn diagram. So for instance, between civic engagement and practical experience, you might find student and volunteerism or community service, which is also something that my office does. And we find, we believe very strongly in it. But service learning kind of operates at this nice sweet spot in between academic study, practical experience, and civic engagement. And then further, there's a lot of different kinds of engaged pedagogies that can be employed in a classroom space, ranging from, say, volunteerism to internships with field education and community service in between. And the idea is that service learning, when done well, kind of operates in this middle ground while balancing the benefit to both the recipient, the students, as well as the provider, the community partner. So balancing those well, and then also balancing a focus on service with a focus on learning. And so all 5 of those kind of types of community engagement represented in the right-hand figure are great and good and should be happening at a healthy institution, and they all happen at UNLV. But we're focusing on service learning, so I wanted to kind of situate it within a broader field of engagement strategies for you. I think we've had some people join, so I'm just going to re-enter that link to the slides in the chat here. Okay, so service learning has been happening at UNLV for a very long time in a lot of different academic spaces. But it wasn't until somewhat recently that we really kind of got our collective arms around it at the institutional level. And one important step that we needed to be able to do that was to define it a little bit further for ourselves. And so we use a lot of the sources that we'll be referencing throughout today, but we also needed to kind of set some sort of criteria to clearly identify what do we actually mean when we say a given UNLV course is a service learning course, because we actually have that formal designation in the way that we register and track courses now. So the first 4, we have 6 criteria. The first 4 around course design. The relationship with the community partners clearly articulated and mutually agreed upon. So the fact that it's not kind of just a last minute placement opportunity, that there's been dialogue and conversation and relationship building between the institution or the institutional representative, so likely the faculty member or maybe the students, and the community partner, so that there's been conversation and agreement in terms of what's the scope of the partnership and what are the goals and roles, etc. That the community need being addressed is clearly defined, preferably by the community or the community partner itself. So there's kind of a common thread that we'll continue to unpack throughout the workshop today around kind of decentering the institution, because there can be a lot of privilege and resources that we come to community partnerships with as representatives of an institution of higher education. And it's really critical that as we go through this process that we're recognizing and honoring the wisdom and experience and expertise that our community partners have in the process too. So that there's been a need being addressed, but that's ideally defined by the community. Third, that associated assignments stemming from service learning experiences must directly contribute to the student's course grade. So in other words, the grade related to service learning that students should be receiving is about their learning and reflection, not just doing the work itself, not just performing 10 hours of service or whatever the expectation might be, that there's meaning making happening, that there's reflection, and that's what the grade should be derived from. And then fourth, at least one course learning outcome is achieved through the service learning experience, so that if we're going to call a course a service learning course, it needs to be foundational to the design of the course. It can't just be kind of an added on beneficial experience. So that covers the first four criteria. The next two are about more of the implementation. So, and the fifth is that service that students engage in must demonstrably benefit a public good. This is far and away the most flexible of the criteria, and that was by design, because we recognize that the types of focus areas and topics and social issues that are likely to be addressed and students being, learning about and serving around are so incredibly varied from different academic contexts, different colleges, et cetera, that we really just wanted to kind of lay out this blanket expectation that it has to be aiming at some public good, but it was very difficult to kind of put further definition around that. So this is really up to the faculty member or the college who's making these, building these relationships to establish in partnership with the community member. And then finally, that students should be guided through a meaningful opportunity to reflect on, make meaning of, and translate their experience to broader personal course or disciplinary contexts. So again, at that initial kind of 1996 definition of service learning that we quoted a couple of slides ago, it centers reflection as an absolutely essential element in the learning process from service learning. So this is how that is represented in the UNLV criteria. And it's also related to the earlier criteria about where the grades for the student experience is coming from. It's about the meaning-making process, the reflection and the learning. So what does this actually look like? I mentioned that somewhat recently, the institution, was able to build out a lot more structure around service learning. And even though it had been happening in lots of places in the curriculum for a very long time, to actually track it in a much more direct way for the first time. And so this is just our second year of data collection in this more holistic way, but it's really exciting to see some of the trends that we have. So for the last academic year 1920, there were 10,231 total enrollment across all semesters in recognized service learning courses. That's a huge percentage of the overall UNLV student population. And when you break it down by entry number, et cetera, we can identify that there were almost 8,000 unique students. So we know that nearly 8,000 UNLV students took at least one service learning course in the last academic year, which is really, I think, a pretty remarkable number. And that number was trending up as well. There are 144 total courses in the last academic year offered, recognized as service learning courses, with 93 unique courses. So some of those were offered over multiple semesters, which is how you get to the 144 number. But 93 unique service learning courses recognized in the curriculum. That there are 521 sections taught by 198 faculty that we were able to identify, at least. There may, in fact, be more involved in teaching these courses. And another exciting thing is that every college is represented. We have some leading the way for sure, which I wanted to identify and recognize and celebrate here, but every single UNLV college has at least one formally recognized service learning course. So you can find the majority of them in education, nursing, hospitality, liberal arts. But I think it's a really exciting thing, the fact that every single college has a number of recognized courses in this way. So I see a question in the chat that I might jump to. Are all service learning course partners from the public sector? Is it possible for private sector partners to help lead a service learning course? Yes, I do tend to operate, or at least communicate in talking about this from a frame of kind of nonprofit community partners, which is, I think, fair to say the majority of how service learning courses are designed. But that's not always the case. There are definitely some private sector partners, particularly, say, in the business college, sometimes hospitality, but elsewhere as well, where you can find some examples of service learning with those partners too. So why am I talking with you all about service learning? It's part of my office's responsibility to track, support, celebrate, and I guess kind of administer service learning across the UNLV curriculum. So we have a number of resources available online and in our office space. So I just wanted to highlight that if you go to unlv.edu/SLL/service learning, which I will put in the chat here, that you can find a number of resources above and beyond what we're going to be covering today. And on a kind of subpage of that dedicated to supporting faculty members specifically, there is a pretty significant resource, Elena, on the next slide if you can, that I wanted to highlight, which is called the UNLV Guide to Service Learning. This is kind of a living document that's meant to be a reference document for any faculty member or teaching assistant who is implementing or is just interested in implementing a service learning course. It covers far more than we'll ever have a chance to address in this workshop, but just know that that is kind of a living and continually updated resource to access. There's also, of course, a number of additional resources available at the institution in different spaces. One of the best book series related to this pedagogy is called Service Learning and the Disciplines, published by Stylus. There are copies available at the UNLV libraries and also from our office, so we can lend them out. And everything from a number of authors talking about what does service learning pedagogy and practice look like in communication studies or in healthcare or in sociology or in economics. And it's really interesting to be able to kind of take a deeper and more specific dive into what this can look like in different academic contexts. So that's a great resource to know about. Another is the Michigan Journal of Community Service Learning. There are a number of academic journals related to community engagement in higher education and service learning specifically, but this is one of the original, and it's also really nice that it's open access. And so you can find a lot of very influential papers and research projects published in this particular journal. Campus Compact is another resource that I wanted to highlight. It's a fundamental professional association for community engagement in higher ed, and UNLV is an institutional member. So they have a wide array of resources available on their website. So that's meant to be kind of a firm grounding, a broad presentation of service learning in general. It's been around for a while as a studied and practiced pedagogy in a lot of different classrooms, but it's not without its critics also. And so I think it's important to address some of what that critique has been and the ways in which the field and the practice has responded to that. So first, Pompa here says, unless facilitated with great care and consciousness, service can unwittingly become an exercise in patronization. In a society replete with hierarchical structures and patriarchal philosophies, service learning's potential danger is for it to become the very thing it seeks to eschew. So that's, I think, a really provocative and critical perspective to recognize some of the limitations. So it's not just having good intentions and reaching out and building up a relationship and integrating a community partnership into a course. You have to think pretty deeply about the relational dynamics, the power dynamics at play, and be pretty transparent in addressing them. So in response to some of this critique, there were a number of authors that offered up something called critical service learning. So I just want to spend a couple minutes exploring what that looks like now. So Tania Mitchell has really been on the vanguard of responding to that critique and talking and thinking through how service learning can be more rooted in true social justice perspectives. And so Mitchell argues that where a service learning project is located, kind of on the continuum of service learning and critical service learning, it's informed by three elements. Number one, the degree to which power is distributed in the service learning relationship. So again, there can be a lot of privileging and resources that are at play when a representative of an institution of higher education is reaching out, say, to a small nonprofit or a small business in the community. And how are you actually thinking and talking about and actively working through those dynamics? Number two, the types of relationships that characterize the service learning initiative. So are they really authentic, or is it merely transactional? There have definitely been well-intentioned faculty members who think that they're doing good work and are providing needed services to the community by encouraging their students to show up and volunteer. But is it actually advancing social justice in any meaningful way, or is it really reinforcing kind of the power dynamics that are at play? Is it more transactional or authentic? And then number three, the degree to which all partners, community, faculty, and students are working from a social change perspective. So on the next slide, that kind of gets unpacked a little bit further. So another kind of continuum comparison, contrasting traditional service learning with critical service learning. So again, those three areas that we just discussed: social change orientation, working to redistribute power, and developing authentic relationships. It's not a binary either or, but it is a spectrum that you can kind of be attending to as you're designing these experiences, with a greater focus towards social change, towards actively redistributing power, and towards developing authentic relationships. That would be more within a critical service learning lens. That's not a requirement right now for a course to be recognized as a service learning course at UNLV, but it is definitely something that I and my office try and speak often and loudly about, and encourage and support faculty members as often as possible to kind of lean into that critical service learning lens.
Okay, now it's my turn unless there are questions on the chat or anyone wants to jump in and ask Ryan. No questions, everyone? Okay, then. So after this amazing introduction of the concept of service learning, I have three different options here because my experience with service learning is more practice than theory. So if you have, well, first, one quick question for everybody. Well, actually, a couple questions. What are your majors? Can you please jump in on the chat and let me know what your majors are? That would be my first question, because that's going to help later.
Elena, I think I see you speaking, but you're muted right now.
Oh, how am I muted? Oh, now? I don't know, I probably clicked on something. Okay, so I see that we have everybody's, right? So journalism, MBA, English creative writing, and management information systems. Okay. So the reason why I'm asking you this is because when you're taking a class and there's a service learning component, this service learning component changes depending on not only the class that you're teaching, but also the needs in the community or the need that you want to address to. So we have what's called direct service, and this kind of service learning puts you in direct contact with the recipient, it says here, of the service. Meaning, for example, if you are volunteering at one of the NGOs in town, and the activity is that you are going to go out on Fridays and you're going to give food to people in need or basic necessities, bare necessities. You are, with this service learning activity, you are in close, direct contact with the recipient. Or for example, it says here, a student in an English class has adopted a nursing home patient with whom she reads books. You're in close contact with that person. Social studies class. You go to a veteran's home and you prepare life story, histories of the veterans. Or business class and you prepare taxes for the elderly. Or if you're in a health class and you set up a free health fair for members of the community, that puts you in direct contact with the person. Now, you can do service learning too without being in direct contact with the people. That would be indirect service. So for example, imagine you're taking a math class and you work with measurements to assist in a habitat house. You're still doing service learning, you're just not in direct contact with anyone. Your work will be. Or you're taking a drama class and you have to perform a play to raise money for charity. Or a science class and you do a stream cleanup and learn to test water quality. Or social studies class and you read a novel about the less fortunate and do a food drive to support the local food pantry. So the difference between these social studies class, a service learning idea, and the one before, is that when you go and you feed them yourself, or when you hand them the basic needs, you are in close contact. When you just volunteer for someone, and for example, you're donating the food to 3 Square, let's say, and you're not in close contact with the person that's finally going to get that food that you're donating, but you're still doing service learning. Then advocacy, it's also a way of implementing service learning in your class. And for example, it says here, students in a communication arts class, they make calls to local businesses to support a neighborhood watch program, or in civics class, and students write letters to the editor to support some issue affecting their community. That could be also a service learning idea, depending on the class that you're teaching. For example, service learning can also be interdisciplinary. So in my case, I'm working with a chemistry professor, and her students are writing infographics in the form of a leaflet. And they are talking about, for example, common chemicals that you're exposed to daily and you don't know. So they are writing the leaflet with pretty basic but really interesting information. Or for example, you are on a keto diet. Do you really know what that is doing to your body? Thinking about biochemistry. So her students are writing these infographics about several pretty interesting topics. And my students in the translation class are gonna take those leaflets that are originally written in English, and they are gonna translate that information into Spanish. Now, how's that helpful? In our community, we live in Vegas, where over 20% of the population is Hispanic. So once we have that information printed, we're gonna just deliver it, make it available to the community. We're gonna make it available on a UNLV campus as well. And that way we reach out to people who might be, being exposed to a chemical that they are allergic to and they don't know, and they are just feeling the symptoms, but their physician cannot figure it out what's going on. And probably reading that leaflet, opens their eyes. Or someone's on the keto diet or whatever other diet, and they didn't know, I didn't know that my body had these reactions, or it's mostly made of chemicals, and eating this way, it's changing everything that's inside of me, or a huge part that's inside of me. So since it's pretty basic information, no high technical terms or anything, it's gonna reach to just everybody in the community. And that's one way where humanities class can work with someone from the chemistry department. I'm also working on a project with a philosophy professor. She's teaching an ethics class, and these ethics have to do with animals. So she has reached out to a farm sanctuary, a local one, and her students are working on a website for this farm sanctuary, where they're going to introduce the animals that are there. They're going to tell you the story, how you can help if you want to. And my students will translate that information into Spanish, because when we met with the farm sanctuary owner, she stated that she was getting so many calls from people who spoke Spanish and kind of some English, and it was so hard for her, to communicate with these people, just because everything she has is in English. And she says it can become a problem when they want to donate some money, or they want to donate some woods to, for a fundraiser, and they can't, because I can't communicate with them. And they can't do it through my website, because first, there's no website, but if there is one, but it's in English, they might not understand it either. So I can reach out to more people if my website is translated into Spanish. So that's those are examples of interdisciplinary projects that you can work with. So service learning, it's extremely open, and you have so many options. I mean, Now, my second question now, have you ever taken a class with a service learning component? Yes or no, tell me. Have you taken a class with a service learning component? No call, okay. Challenging. Okay. Yes, but not at UNLV. Not yet, no. Okay, so Sarah, you took a class. Can you tell us just a little bit what was that service learning? What is it that you did in that class?
Hi, I actually worked as like the student liaison for our service learning, I guess like committee, and then I worked with the students in the actual classes. And then I did take a class before I graduated where we worked with one of our local nonprofits that does a lot of like food distribution and resource distribution. We just went there and had like a service day. We did a lot of different service projects, and like that was for a psychology class. But generally, I helped like students one-on-one, like find places they could serve, or I facilitated reflection a lot. So it was the kind of things that I did.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of work. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so my questions here have to do, well, obviously we're going to change this a little bit because most of you have not been exposed to service learning before. So let's go back to the previous slide and imagine, let's take, let me see, here. We're just going because we want to volunteer at a nursing home, and you, for example, can go and read books, or you just, go and spend some time with them, talk with them, or let them talk with you, or you can, walk with them, or help them do some kind of exercise. All those would be ideas for service learning. So if we are doing this service learning in a class, what do you think it would be the knowledge that you get from it? And you can unmute yourselves because otherwise that's going to be way too long if you want to type it on the chat. And these, we're brainstorming, so please feel free to just jump in. What knowledge? If we do this service learning, one of our classes, we go to this nursing home and we help the patients in any way we can. So what knowledge would you gain from that? What does it teach you? And I'll give you the first one. Muy bien. Okay, let's practice English speaking. That would be perfect, especially if you're having a conversation. Yeah, you can also, if you're reading them, you can practice your reading skills, right, in English. What else? What else can we learn from this, from this service learning? We can practice our English. Anyway, organization and interpersonal skills. Marlena, that's perfect. Yeah. Organization, you mean, for example, because you have to know when you are attending school, when you go to work, and then how much time you have every day, scheduling. And then interpersonal, because you're having these conversations or you're helping other people, you're being social there, right? And you never know how the other person is going to react. That you have, that's something you have to keep in mind when you're doing direct service learning, because not everybody's going to be nice, or not everybody's going to be nice every day. So, but you're also learning that there's a nursing home in your community that needs you, right? You're working with diverse groups, yeah? That's totally true. And that teaches you something, interpersonal skills, and that's pretty important. Okay, so what skills do you think you need when you do an activity like this one? Well, basically, you need to speak English. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to communicate, right? So we need to speak the language. But what else? What other skills do you think you need? when you're working with the elderly or a nursing home? Time management. Professional etiquette. That's interesting. And also, when you go to the nursing home, you'll probably get some information from the people there, so you know what kind of patients they have. Because sometimes they are, regulations, and that's important. Things you can do and things you're not supposed to do. Regulations, yep. And also, for example, if it's a specific nursing home for Alzheimer's disease, for example, or any other brain degenerative diseases, or it's just people who have some kind of physical disability. They will let you know about that, and then you need to know how to approach that. Perfect. Let me see. What opinions and attitudes do you form, or do you think that you would form while taking this course? Do you think that do you think that it will help you in some way doing this service learning activity? If you were taking an English class, learning English, do you think that this service learning would help you in any way? Do you think that, I could just keep learning English the regular way, this service learning would not really help me much? What's your idea of an opinion? Maybe being exposed. Do you think that being exposed to someone who speaks a different language would help you, practice the language? Of course, it would help. Do you think it will be more fun if you are exposed to the community instead of just attending class, and from class you go home, you do your homework? You would like this apply to your MBA? Yeah, that would be, for example, the business class, You prepare taxes for the elderly or for minorities or people in need who cannot, afford to pay for someone that can prepare the taxes. Do you think, Marlene, that would be something that would be interesting? Learning with a good deed? Definitely. Yeah, because when you help out in your community, people you know, it does kind of make you feel like you're not only learning in class, but you're also, giving back to the community, right? And that gives you experience. So that goes to your CV. So it's a win-win, right? Okay, I wanted to show you, I have 3 different examples with 3 different ways of applying service learning when it comes to social science, environmental, and then health. And just so you can see more options, no? So for example, this one's the one that's related to health. And it gives you ideas. So for example, look at the direct service here. Play resource games with children from a local elementary school once a month. Or just if you're doing research, have students research health statistics in your community or state. Obesity levels and rates of various preventable diseases could be used. Organize a collection drive to ask neighbors and school families to donate new and gender used sporting goods for families that may not have access to them. Those are ideas, right? Or set up a bicycle obstacle course and then teach young children, just help them. Team sports, organize a sports team to promote fitness, team building skills, sportsmanship. Because the health field is so broad. They have, you can do so many things. One of the projects that I have with my interpreting class, the difference between translation and interpreting is that translation is everything that's written on a page. And then interpreting, it's everything that's oral. There has to be some kind of interaction. So when you're interpreting, my students go to a pediatric clinic here in town. And this pediatric clinic, most of their patients, like 70% of their patients are minorities, and most of them are Hispanic. So my students learn in class how to interpret between English and Spanish. They learn some medical vocabulary, and then they sign up for their service learning, and they go to the clinic. At the beginning, everybody's nervous because it's the first time that they are exposed to it. They don't know if they are going to do it correctly. They take it really seriously because they know that they are going to interpret between the physicians that work at the clinic and the patients that come. So they don't want to make any mistakes, because if they make a mistake, the physician might prescribe something that's wrong, or they can diagnose something that's not actually what's going on, or the physician might say something and then the family doesn't understand, or they don't follow the directions, and then they cause a bigger problem. So once they are exposed to it, they realize that it's not as hard as they think it is. They just need to get used to the new context. It's actually not a really difficult task, because most of the kids that go to this clinic, they just need vaccinations. They are probably coming down with the flu, or they have a stomach ache, or they are just there for their annual checkup. So it's not anything specific. It's not a specialty. And one of the questions that they ask is, what if the physician tells the mom, your kid has cancer? How do I say that? And I'm like, you just interpret. It's not you saying it, it's the physician. You're just, conveying the meaning. So it's hard because it also involves some kind of psychology and get them ready. But as you can see, the health field offers many options for service learning. We have the environmental service. So imagine this. I mean, you can, for example, volunteer with a group of people and go to the wetlands here and help them, clean the paths. Or you can build bird houses with the local nature center and attract the bird whose home is threatened. Or organize a collection drive and ask neighbors and school families to donate garden supplies for a community garden. Or hold a community information night to inform neighbors about the importance of reducing invasive species. So this is applied to environment, but then think about your own majors and see how you can actually, it would be pretty easy to just come up with an idea for one of your classes. And Ryan, you just mentioned something here in the chat. What is
I was just offering my appreciation. The example that you described of your translation class and the service, the health services in the community is amazing. It's such a great example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, because and students, actually, it's really good, because students, for example, have told me at the end of the class, I didn't know that this was actually a career that I could study, take the federal exam, become a medical interpreter, and work for a hospital or a doctor's office. And others say, I have so much fun. Can I continue volunteering at the clinic even though the class is over? So that means that students realize that there's a need in the community, and they not only feel good because they learned something in class that they can actually life. They also feel good because they know that they are helping. So that's why this is my longest service learning project ever, because I always get so many good reviews about it. Not at the beginning when everybody's freaking out, but I'm thinking that they are going to have to say that someone has cancer. But when they start, working with it, they actually feel really well about it. And then all these websites are included in the bibliography, just in case anyone wants to, take a look at them, with more time. And especially this one gives you a lot of information in case you end up teaching a course and you're thinking about implementing service learning. They give you ideas on how to do this. For example, if you need to set the outcomes. So for example, we were talking about what knowledge do you gain if you go to this nursing home, you do this. So you not only know the partner agency, meaning you not only know the people at the nursing home, you meet their employees as well, because you're going to be working with them directly. You also know how your interpersonal skills, you improve them, you get exposed to real life problems, and you have to come up with solutions. And then you realize that there's a need in the community, and you're helping out and you can based on what you're learning in class. So when you take a class, you always think, what is this for? Is it going to teach me something? Is it going to be really useful when I start, working in the community? And service learning just proves that the course that you're taking takes you to the community. It's not only teaching you something, it's also going to, prepare you to be exposed to the community and then to help out or end up working. So one important thing is you need to keep in mind that this is just another assignment within the class. So the whole class is not devoted to the service learning. There's so much you can do, but if that's going to be just one assignment and you have more assignments in your class, you just have to keep in mind that, yes, we want to address this need. Yes, my students are really having fun with this, but I also have to do these other things to pass the class successfully. So you always keep in mind that even if you like your service learning project, there's so much you can do, at least within the context of the class. Once you're over, if you want to keep volunteering, like you were mentioning before, organization, that will obviously give you more experience. But within the context of the class, yeah, that's something that we have to keep in mind. So yeah, for example, there was a project here, Philosophies with Action, information of other academic sources, education. And I think there was, 15 hours spent. That's if you're taking a three credit course, doing more than 15 hours of service learning, I don't think that will be way too much. But 15 hours, considering that you're gonna not only being exposed to the community, but also that you have to reflect on the activities that you've done, and then probably write an essay or fill out a survey. So, and this is the information that I mentioned before. You have it here as well. So that's all about this class. Now we have to consider this for every service learning assignment. Are we really helping out in the community? Because otherwise, if what you're doing doesn't really mean anything to anyone out there, then why are you doing it, right? So if you see that there's a need in your community and that you can do something about it, you can always discuss with any of your professors, would you be willing to, include this service learning project in your class? And if not, you can still discuss with them. I'm thinking about, doing this for this agency or this organization or association or foundation. Would you consider this as an assignment or as an extra credit because it's directly, related to the topic of the class, and I'm really exposed, and I think that the professor would actually consider it, even if they don't do the service learning idea for their project for their class. They might give you the extra credit, as long as obviously your idea has to do with the content of the class, and you can prove that you actually did the job and get some like real life exposure. You could get extra credit for this. Then, like I was saying, academic knowledge, the actual content of your class. Is this service learning? Is this project helping you understand better what you're learning in class? Or does it help you see how it applies to real life? the time that you spend always be, if you're on your own doing the service learning, just consider how much time you can devote to this. Because remember what we were saying before, you mentioned the organization skills. Most of you either work and study at the same time, or if you're full-time students, it's still, at a graduate level, you have to devote so much time to your courses and assignments and all the essays that you have to write and everything else. So if you are planning, or if you would like to do something in the community, just consider the time that you can devote to it, because we don't want you, to be overwhelming. That would not be one of our goals. And then, Ryan's office can help you with this. Do I need a waiver? Do I need permissions or authorizations to do this service learning? Because we don't want you obviously to get in trouble. And yeah, Sarah, sure. Thank you for being here. And remember that we are recording this so you can watch it later. And yeah, because if you get injured or someone else gets injured because of you, we want you to be covered. And also the university has a policy on this, and Ryan can help you just in case you need anything. Once you have done your service learning, it's also really important to reflect on it. Just sit down and think, okay, I've done this for these 15 hours. It has to do with this class. And did it help me learn something from this class? Did it help me address the need in the community? How did it help me as not just a student, but as a person too, like interpersonal skills? And then you can always, think about, oh, this was interesting. I think that I could do some research on this and then present at a conference or at a research fair. We have the graduate research fairs at UNLV, and there are tons of students that participate every year with really interesting ideas. So why not, you have devoted the time, you have learned from it. Why not do a little bit more research and then present at a conference? And since you're graduate students, you know that for your masters and your doctorates, you need the research, you need the presentation. So why not? That's just another idea that you might, include. And when I was saying before reflection activities, just always remember, does this have something to do with what I'm learning? Or I'm just doing this volunteer, this project, but it's more a volunteer thing. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything that I'm studying. Can I devote just 1 hour a week, or can I go every other day for an hour? I'm gonna ask, let's go back to the nursing home. I'm gonna ask the employees there, or the people that I'm, reading or talking with or walking with, how they perceive my job. What is it that I'm doing that it's helping them, or it's not helping them because there was actually a lack of communication, and I'm supposed to do something, but I'm doing something else. So that teaches you as well. Help clarify the values. I mean, not only speak to the person that you're working with directly, if there's an intermediary, or work with your professor if you're taking this class with the service learning. You have, again, Ryan's office to help you out. And then always keep in mind your goals. Like, let's not do just this because I was bored one day and I thought that it would be a good idea. What is it that I really want from this? What's the specific need that I'm addressing? What's what are the specific goals as a student? What do I want to learn from this? Or how can I use this towards my research? Do I want to, this is something that's actually really interesting and I can, do research and present, or maybe include it in my thesis if I'm writing one, if it makes sense for you. I mean, those are the specific goals or objectives that you can think about before you start with the project. Then critical thinking, that's something my students hate, but they end up doing it. And that's when they realize that they learned something. with the project. So they actually have to sit down and think, okay, I did this, I learned this in class, the community needed this is what I got from the community partner or from the people I was working with. So once I have all this information, let's see if the consequence is a positive one or a negative one. And you can also think, is this something that I want to continue doing, or is this something that's a one-time thing and because it didn't work, or the goals that I had I didn't fulfill them at the end? Or is it something that it was amazing, or I think that, well, it wasn't that good, but if I change these 2 or 3 things, it might work? Or then you as a learner, how this benefits you, how this changed you. Like we were talking before, not just as a person, as a student, as a learner. Was this something that you would like to keep doing, or it was a good experience, that's it, I learned what I needed to learn and I'm going to move on to something else? And my idea for an activity, I just wanted to have you all participate with me, and let's just come up with a service learning, all of us. So I know that you are from completely different majors. So let's see, I gave you an idea for the English major, and then there was something there for the MBA with the taxes, and something as a journalist with the editorial thing. I don't have anything for, let me see, who was studying? Let's see, management information systems. So the 2 students that are studying this, can you think of an idea? Do you have a project? Do you think something that you could do in the community? Can you give us an idea? What could you do in the community to help out with what you're taking, with your major? How could you help? And we'll start from there. What can you think of? You can use the chat, or you can just unmute yourselves. Some kind of analysis program for the information. Okay, so would you put, for example, I'm not so sure, working with a nonprofit or charity or something that has data available and seeing if there's some way to better use the information? That's amazing. Okay, so let's do that. Imagine that there's a nonprofit here in town and they have some data. Let's see, they have data about their patients, and they want to know who is from which minority, or who is a local who comes from outside Vegas, or who speaks just one language, who speaks a couple languages, what kind of diseases are more common, or what's the most reason for them to visit us. And they have gathered all this data, but they have no idea how to work with it. So is that something that you could help them with? They have all the data already in the computer. They just don't have the software or the program to work with it. Is that something, Cole and Sal, something that you could be able to help with? Because when you say it has data available, yes, definitely. Okay, you could create a basic program, data cleaning. Oh, that would be amazing to solve some kind of problem. If they already have a program, you could actually help if it's giving them, if there's a glitch or something. Okay, so that's going to be our service learning. We have contacted this physician's office or this clinic in town, and they help with implementing a new system. That would be amazing. So they have contacted us at UNLV, and they have all this information in their computer. Let's just think that they don't have the software because they are a nonprofit. So they can't afford to pay for a software, and they are asking you if you can do something with this information that they have. So you're going to implement the new system or the new program. Now, can you tell me 2 goals for this project? Let's come up with a couple goals. And I will write them here so that everybody can see. So, what is it that you, the first goal, for example, for the community? Oh, wait a minute. I don't know what I did with annotate. Oh, that's apparently. The first goal could be just the need would be help out a nonprofit by implementing a new system, and then help them. The second one could be help the employees understand the data and make it meaningful. Yeah, because the fact that they know how to use a computer doesn't mean that they understand, That's perfect. There are many, many small organizations that collect this data. Oh, Ryan, true, because you have access to that. Price reporting and data management, that can be a real challenge for them. That's true. So those are our goals. We're going to help out this nonprofit by implementing a new system so they can make sense of all the data that they have, and then help the employees understand all the data and make this new system meaningful. So basically help them understand how it works. Okay, those are our goals. Now, for you as a student, what do you think that you could learn from this? Because you're taking these classes, so you know how to implement a new system, you know how to help these people understand this new system, how to get the new data, or how to clean it. So that helps them. But how does this project help you as a student? How do you think? Just a couple of ideas. How client interaction skills. I like that. Client interaction skills. Professionalism. Okay. So we have these 2 ideas. Do you think that it would help you understand better the contents from your class? Or do you feel just confident enough with what you're learning in class and you don't think that these tasks would actually help in any way? Yes, especially to do more with more limited resources. Yeah, because once you meet with the nonprofit, you don't know what they have or what they can offer. And then you probably go there and you find more problems than solutions. So yeah, it would teach you, actually you would learn how people out there are working with limited resources and how to help them out. That's amazing. Let me add it, because since you mentioned it. Learn more with how to do more with limited resources. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing this important information. Now you do the job. You have implemented the new system. You have helped the people at the nonprofit learn how to work with it, and you have all these this new background, this new knowledge as a student. Now, when you are done with your project, how do you think it would be a good idea to reflect on this information? What kind of essay, for example, a survey, or what kind of an activity, any kind, not an assignment, just a way of making do some critical thinking. What do you think it would be most helpful for you once you're done with the project, just to sit down, analyze everything, and really see in front of you, okay, I did all this, I devoted all these hours, I did all this work with these people, I was in close contact with 10 people at the same time, or different people every month, or the same people every month. And what did they teach me? What do you think it would be a good activity at the end of the semester, just to reflect on everything you did and everything you learned? Do you think that an essay would be more helpful, or do you think that a survey would be more helpful? What do you think, all of you in general? What does it help you more reflect on something you've done at the end of the semester? And you can use the chat or just unmute yourself. That's fine. Documented report. So we could, as a documented report, we could use that. And would you include some information from the nonprofit here in this documented report? Or is it just you writing everything? Yes, perfect. What else? Everybody agrees with a meeting with the stakeholders to get their perspective on how we did, as well as possibly a presentation report. Oh, that would be interesting. Meeting with stakeholders, get their perspective, and work on a presentation. And would you do this presentation in front of the other students in the class, or would you do it just for your professor, or for your professor and the people from the nonprofit? Everyone? Because maybe the other students in the class are working on different service learning projects, and they can learn too. That's perfect. Yeah, they can learn too. Okay, so we have the documented report, we have a presentation, plus, people's, everyone involves their perspective. And can you get any other ideas for how to reflect on everything you did at the end of the semester? Or are we good with this ones? Invite a community partner to campus to a class session to talk about and debrief. Oh, that's amazing. Brian, thank you. So that would be invite the community partner to a class session and have them talk and brief the project. Do you think that this would be helpful if the people you have been working with would come to your class and you would be able to discuss the project in class? Do you think that it would be helpful? I think it's an amazing idea. It's just about how much time they have, right, Ryan? That's normally the problem.
Absolutely. It's not always possible, but oftentimes it can be really appreciated, even just extending the invitation.
Yeah, because that means that you are actually, still thinking about it, that you just, didn't go do your job and then it's done, bye-bye. Okay. So I think that we have gathered pretty good ideas here. I mean, first coming up with the project, and then the goals, what you learn from it, how you help out, and then, ideas to reflect, because reflection is always important at the end of a project like this one. What did I learn? How did I help? So yeah, that's amazing. Thank you everyone for participating in the activity. I know it doesn't apply to everybody, but I mean, you have all the resources on the slides that Ryan showed during this presentation. So if you're always going to go back to any of these slides or websites, to get ideas, or if you already know your community and you have spotted a need and you think that you could come up with a service learning idea for your professor or even for you, and then just if I do this, can I get some extra credit? Always remember that it has to do with the content of the class, otherwise service learning doesn't apply. So if you can come up with something and want to do something, and then explore the idea of research and presentations, I think that could always benefit you. As if you're a master or doctorate students, research is something for you. So okay, and Ryan, sharing and the brief.
Well, I know we've been communicating successfully on chat here, but it'd be great if I could hear from maybe just a few of you in terms of how we were able to design a pretty nice idea for a service learning project with identified goals and purpose, identified kind of hypothetical community partner, and ways in which we'd be incorporating reflection and learning into the course design. But so in a pretty short period of time, we accomplished that together. So I'd love to just hear if this is sparking anything for you. Could you see this being relevant in your areas of study?
Yes, let's hear some voices. We know you're there. Don't be shy, that's okay.
Eating, totally understand.
Oh, yeah, I'm hungry too. Okay, then just use the chat. Ryan, would you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, of course. We're just interested in kind of hearing applicability. Could you see this applying in your different areas of study? And I'll just say, I love the example that we came up with here, looking at kind of data information management, because there are limitless possibilities and limitless challenges and needs that different community partners have out there. And so it really doesn't matter about what discipline you're coming from or where your area of expertise is. Someone needs it. Someone could benefit from it. And I think that's one of the core takeaways, because it's not just about some of the more traditional ideas of kind of direct service that might first come to mind when we're talking about service learning. There's lots and lots of different ways to benefit our community while we're also accomplishing our educational mission. And I think that's what I love so much about this work.
Oh, Marlena, you want us to share this information with MBA professors? Oh yeah, that's the nonsense. Every time you apply for something, everybody's looking for experience, but if you don't give it to me, how do I get it, And that's where service learning comes in, because you get the experience. And you not only get the experience, you also get your networking, because you know who's looking over you, who's been paying attention to how you've been working and how you've been delivering, and who they are going to be talking to, and you might end up, finding a job just, with a service learning project. So
absolutely, and like the example that you talked about with your translation class, it can expose students to whole new career possibilities that maybe they weren't even aware of previously.
Mm-hmm. So Marlena, the way that I'm dealing with COVID right now, unfortunately, we cannot send out students to the community, but what I'm doing, instead of the interpreting at the clinic, we're translating. So we get documents in English that my students are translating into Spanish. So for the same pediatric clinic, they have all these leaflets with common questions from parents and how to clean, how to help your kid clean their teeth, or how to tie your shoes, or what is shingles. So simple things like those, they have everything in English. My students are translating. That way they are not exposed to the community, but they are still helping out. And what I mentioned before with the chemistry professor, still translation. With the philosophy professor, it's going to be translation too. So until it's safe to go out in the community, I just, I advise to find a way of not doing direct service learning. So helping out, but just from your home, or if you have an office on campus. Sure, yeah. And you have my email, so yeah, if you want to just send me an email, and because you come up with an idea and you want me to give you some advice, please feel free to send me an email anytime. Ryan, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh no, it's a perfect and timely question in terms of what community engagement and service learning specifically looks like in the context of COVID. And I will say, a lot of existing service learning courses have pivoted in that same way. The institution has a responsibility of care for its students and doesn't want to be, putting anyone in harm's way. But that hasn't been the only adaptation to kind of virtualize the service. Our nursing and medical schools are very much still providing direct service to the community in a number of ways, of course, taking extraordinary precautions and, personal protective equipment, et cetera. But there's a wide response and a wide set of adaptations right now to COVID. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, and Marlene was also asking, how can we share information with the MBA people? Ryan, is your office in contact with different colleges or programs on campus?
Yeah, I wish I could say I have kind of a direct hotline to every dean on campus. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but we absolutely have kind of partners and allies and champions in all of the different colleges who are already doing this work and who help encourage their peers, their other faculty members, to consider integrating this into their courses. And one of the things that I find really exciting is that, as I mentioned in some of the numbers in terms of where service learning is happening and what the numbers look like for UNLV, it's growing. It's growing in a lot of different spaces. So there are definitely more faculty members thinking about how to integrate this into their courses than there were a few years ago, which is really exciting.
Marlene says that it's her first semester as a grad student. Do you know if they implement this as for graduate courses as well, Ryan?
Yes, there are definitely graduate courses that have been recognized as service learning courses, definitely.
I did it once with my legal interpreting graduate course. I had students, actually, it was serving the community, but it was through the Thomas and Mack Legal Clinic on campus. You know that the law school has this clinic and they serve the community at no charge. So my students work directly with minors who are applying for asylum here in the US. So they were the interpreters between the kids who obviously don't speak English. If they speak something, it's not that well, and the attorneys who were in charge of their case. And some days they went back home crying because of everything they had to hear. And other days they were happy because they were actually able to help. And it was my graduate students who did this. So, and yeah, there's another. very important for international students to know the local life and culture, as well as building up some networking outside the school. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's actually one of the benefits from service learning. They put you out there so people get to know you. So anybody, any questions? Yeah, as I was telling you before, you have the bibliography at the end of the slides with the direct links. So any questions, anyone on the chat, or just mute yourselves, or any other comments that you have, if there's something we can help you with?
I'm just mindful of the time here, and I know we're at about our projected time. So I want to thank everyone for participating.
Yeah.
This has been great, and I hope it was helpful to not only hear about service learning, but to kind of collectively work through a potential design for a service learning course in a way. So I'm just very thankful. Also, Elena, this was amazing to hear about all of your direct experience facilitating service learning. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Winnie. It's good to know that you got an idea about a project from this workshop. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for brainstorming together, for your ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for facilitating this. It was super informative and a very important topic. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we'll see you at the next workshop. Bye.
Thank you, Navina. Thank you, Ryan. Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.